Hey guys, today we're going to be doing 3.2 Lenin's New Society. So who was Lenin? Lenin was the leader of the Bolsheviks. The April thesis were peace, bread, land, and all power to the Soviets. July days were the Bolshevik-led protests that turned into rebellions. Some of his decrees include limiting the working day to 8 hours, as well as making marriage and divorce easier, and holding free elections, and peace, bread, and land, and so yeah, those were some of the stuff that he wanted to change. So the provisional government were a temporary government set up after the Tsar abdicated because no one was willing to take control. So this provisional government was set up. Provisional government had three challenges to face. Number one was how to get food to the workers. Number two was to make peace or continue with the war, and they decided to continue with the war. However, peasants were very discontent by this. Number three was whether to give the land to the peasants or wait until the elections had been held. They decided to wait until the elections had been held, but peasants started taking the land forcefully anyway. So the October-November Revolution included the Red Army, the Red Guards. So they were organized by Trotsky. Trotsky organized the Red Guards. They took control over like railway lines, roads, banks, and other key sites of the cities, and they basically took control the next morning, faced little opposition, mainly because people were so discontent. Although they claimed that they were a large party, they were very small. They were small but disciplined. They had key support in the right places, despite being such a small party. The Kornilov affair was basically, Kornilov was an army leader. He wanted to get rid of the provisional government, and Kerensky, who was the leader of the provisional government, asked for help from the Bolsheviks, and they both put it down, but it showed how the provisional government didn't have any control at all, and it was mainly the Bolsheviks. The Constituent Assembly compromised of the free elections because Lenin had promised free elections. So, as Lenin had feared, Bolsheviks did not gain the majority of the vote, the Social Revolutionaries did. So as a typical dictator, Lenin sent troops, he put the election down, and it was forgotten about. End of Russia's role in World War I. So Trotsky, he was in charge of organizing peace. This became known as the Brest-Litovsk. So he became in charge of organizing the peace. And Lenin tried to delay this. He tried to delay making peace because he wanted civil war to break out in Germany as it had done in Russia, but that wasn't the case. So more and more pressure, they had to give up to the requirements. So they lost lots of rubles, which is a currency. They lost lots of agricultural land, industrial land, coals, mines, factories, workers as well. So the cost was tremendous, but they got what they wanted. They wanted peace, and they got that. War communism was where the lazy working peasant earned as much as the hard-working peasant. And this wasn't very fair, but this was how he wanted to establish communism. So the hard-working peasants started working more lazily because they knew they were going to get the same thing. The government came to take food, the requisition parties, they took the food away. People were not having enough to feed themselves. Everything was government controlled and state run. There was nothing left for the peasants, and people were very discontent. And this led to the Kronstadt Rising. Kronstadt was an important naval base, and they set I think it was 15 things they wanted to change about the war communism, and it showed how discontent they were. And the Kronstadts were very important supporters of Bolshevism. So Lenin was really surprised when they did this reform. So he put them down, obviously, but with Trotsky and his troops. But he decided to leave war communism, and then he changed it to the NEP. In the NEP, it did go against communism because it was capitalism beliefs, so profit could be made. So the rich, the hardworking peasant, the government took some away. However, he was able to sell his surplus for profit as well as feed his family, and some private business and enterprise were allowed. But obviously, this went against communism. Communism. So now going on to the Civil War. The Civil War compromised of the whites, which were anti-Bolsheviks, included foreign forces, and number two were the Bolsheviks, who were the Reds. And some key features of the Civil War included the fact that the people that were fighting, their families were taken hostage by the Bolsheviks for loyalty, as well as the fact that the Bolsheviks were a small, disciplined party and had one aim. Unlike the whites, who were very disorganized, the workers once, the fighters and the rebellions. The rebellers were not supported well, and society was also very fearful of the aristocracy returning and taking their land away. So obviously they didn't support the whites, as well as the White Terror. So the White Terror was basically the whites causing more harm to the peasants, normal peasants. The Reds did too, but the whites caused more harm than the Reds did. So people were very fearful of that. Reds, they had public speeches given, as well as propaganda films shown to maintain the loyalty. The Tsar's family were executed in case the monarch was restored back into position. The Cheka was basically a bigger version of the Red Army and the Red Guards, because he realized he needed a larger body, and the Cheka were basically his secret police. So that's all of 3.2 Lenin's New Society done. And Lenin died in 1924, and there was no clear successor to take charge of it.